You are my favorite author of all time.
You should read more.
One thing that immediately set Benjamin Lafayette Sisko apart from the captains that came before him was the fact that he was a father. Star Trek Deep Space Nine begins with the Battle of Wolf 359, where his wife, Jennifer Sisko, perishes. Sisko can't save her, but he does save his son, Jake. The bond between father and son would grow through the seasons of DS9, mirroring how close Avery Brooks and Cirroc Lofton became in real life. Though Lofton does not dominate the episode, perhaps no installment of DS9 showcases this bond better than the Season 4 masterpiece, The Visitor. Welcome back to Sci-Fi Wire's Warp Factor Classic Blend. Engage! Come in out of the rain, sit by the fire, and prepare for a mission briefing! The Visitor first aired in 1995, but if you haven't seen it, it's new to you. All crew to spoiler stations, but because 1995, yellow alert! On a dark and stormy night in Louisiana, a young girl named Melanie visits a much older Jake Sisko to ask him why he stopped writing. His answer? He lost his father when he was 18. Older Jake recounts the tale.
It's a long story.
I have time.
In the regular DS9 timeline, the wormhole is about to undergo a rare temporal subspace inversion, one of those, and Captain Sisko takes Jake along to see the event on the Defiant. The inversion causes malfunctions all over the ship, and though Sisko manages to save the day from engineering and push his son to safety, a discharge from the warp core causes Sisko to vanish, presumably vaporized and dead, right in front of Jake. The crew of DS9 rally around Jake in the wake of this loss, especially Dax and Nog. One night, as he lies in bed, there is a flash of light and Jake sees his father across from him. Dax performs some scans, but ultimately Jake dismisses it as a dream. Things then ramp up politically as the Bajorans signed a defense pact with Cardassia, which pisses off the Klingons. The station is on the front line, so most of it is evacuated, but Jake will not leave because that station is his father's legacy. Major Kira lets him stay on the condition that when she tells him to go, he will do so. Jake then has another vision of his father a few months later, but this time he's physically able to touch him. They get Captain Sisko to the infirmary and realize that he's not dead after all. He's fallen out of sync with time. He vanishes again before anyone can do anything about it. Many months are spent trying to get Sisko back, but eventually the station is abandoned to the Klingons. Jake returns to Earth, marries a Bajoran woman named Karena, and spends time with Nog, now a commander. He wins an award for his writing. Karena designs the cover for his new novel, and then his father appears in their home. He's nothing but proud of everything that Jake has accomplished, but Jake is overcome with guilt about letting him go. Sisko vanishes once more, so Jake stops writing and devotes his entire life to getting his father back. This obsession costs him his marriage, but it doesn't matter. If Jake can recreate the original accident, there's a chance of success. Captain Nog pulls the Defiant out of mothballs, and an older Dax and Dr. Bashir help him to make this happen. When accomplished, Jake ends up being pulled into subspace, where Sisko is sad to hear that Jake has forsaken his own life to try to save him. He pleads with Jake to live his life properly before this visit ends. Old Jake tells Melanie that he himself is now dying, and she realizes that the final visit is going to happen very soon. She departs. Sure enough, Captain Sisko appears once more. Old Jake tells him that he was the anchor that kept bringing Sisko back, and if he severs that connection, that Sisko would return to the time of the initial accident, now with enough warning to jump out of the way of the discharge. Sisko realizes in horror that Jake has taken poison, but Jake says that he's actually saving two lives, his father and the boy that he used to be. Old Jake dies, and Sisko does indeed snap back to the scene of the accident where, this time, he dodges the energy discharge. Young Jake questions how he knew how to get out of the way, but Sisko just hugs his son.
Look at his eyes uncovered!
Does The Visitor have all kinds of references and secrets hidden within its emotional depths? Did LeVar Burton post an insanely heartwarming photo of himself with Sir Patrick Stewart very close to Captain Picard Day? A big yes to both questions. Because it was deemed too difficult to make young Cirroc Lofton appear to be in his 70s, the legendary Tony Todd was cast in the role of older Jake Sisko.
None of them matters. Now that I know that you're out there lost somewhere.
Todd is not only a genre mainstay, he is prolific in Trek itself, famously recurring on both TNG and DS9 as Worf's brother, Kurn. Todd was grieving the loss of a family member in real life at the time, and has said that this script got him out of his shell again, almost whispering, as he has said, "Go back to work." The future depicted in this episode runs with the plot point of the new Klingon conflict, which began in the episode that aired prior to this one, the Season 4 opener, The Way of the Warrior. Thankfully, this conflict would be resolved and the Klingons would be allies again by Season 5. The Dominion War, which is dominant for the rest of DS9 proper, doesn't really take place in this alternate timeline. Not really. Major Kira got what is possibly her biggest uniform change, beginning with this episode bidding farewell forever to those giant shoulder pads and going with an open collar and high-heeled boots. Though Nana Visitor liked the change because the new uniform was easier to move in, the internet did not like it at all. The future uniforms worn by Starfleet officers are the same ones seen in the TNG finale All Good Things, with future comm badges to match. Though we see an older Jadzia Dax in these scenes, it's well before she developed her romance with Worf, so that's not included in her future. In the real timeline, Jadzia doesn't last anywhere close to this long, as she is killed at the end of Season 6, and the Dax symbiont got a new host with Ezri Tegan. Jake Sisko's writing would continue to be a plot point for the character, and he would begin writing his novel Anselm, referred to here, under the influence of Evelyn, Onaya, later on in Season 4 in the episode The Muse. That's a special one. The episode is one of many bad dream type scenarios, something Trek does often with a timeline full of awful events and then a reset at the end. The Enterprise episode Twilight does this, as well as the Voyager two-parter Year of Hell. The famous TNG episode The Inner Light has Jean-Luc Picard live another man's life in its entirety, but Jean-Luc retains those memories afterwards. Most of the DS9 cast and crew consider this episode to be a highlight of the entire series, with both Avery Brooks and Cirroc Lofton citing it as a favorite right beside the classic Far Beyond the Stars. Brooks also has said that this episode is a milestone in how television depicted black families. Fans love the episode as well, with it always ranking very high, not only in terms of DS9 episodes, but Star Trek as a whole. In 1996, TV Guide readers voted it the best episode of Trek ever made, and the publication was so shocked by this that somebody wrote, "The least popular incarnation of Star Trek has produced the most popular show." Least popular, my ass. That little quote hasn't aged well, has it? Not that anyone cares, but it's also another one of my own personal favorites. Nobody cares. Finally, Kira comforting Jake Sisko is a harbinger to the final scene of DS9. I'm not going to go into that because spoilers, but also because I'll cry. The Sisko is of Bajor.
Earl Grey never fails.
Earl Grey never fails, no matter what certain websites say. And boy, does The Visitor not fail to rip my heart out with every single line. Avery Brooks, Cirroc Lofton, and Tony Todd give masterful life to all of it. Captain Sisko's advice to his son early on is a winner.
I'm no writer. But if I were, it seems to me I'd want to poke my head up every once in a while and take a look around. See what's going on. It's life, Jake. You can miss it if you don't open your eyes.
But later on, it's hard to beat Sisko imploring Jake to let him go.
Let go, Jake. If not for yourself, then for me. You still have time to make a better life for yourself. Promise me you'll do that. Promise me.
The most haunting line, however, would be Jake's dedication in his book, which his father reads towards the episode's end. To my father.
was coming home.
Earl Grey never fails. This is PG tips, but my point still stands.
Fish! When these woods are crawling with perfectly good slugs.
I suppose you're going to ask me to chew your food for you.
I have to admit, I've been more popular with women since I stopped asking them to do that.
Though this is a mostly self-contained episode, ramifications for Treks of the Future could still take place in the form of Jake Sisko. The return of the emissary himself is probably never going to happen, but the Sisko saga could certainly continue through Jake. We've seen him as a writer in multiple forms, and thanks to the final season of DS9, we know there's possibly a little emissary within him as well. The son becomes the father the son, all that stuff, maybe? I don't know. If future shows deal with Bajor, the Prophets, or the overall Sisko story, then Cirroc Lofton's return as Jake Sisko would make total sense. It's also something I want, so make it so. Do it. Speaking of things I want. Crusher Watch! Crusher Watch! Nope, wrong series, not in this show. Come on.
Hailing frequencies open.
Our hailing frequencies are now open. Be sure to share your thoughts on The Visitor, as well as what episodes you'd like to see us cover in future installments. One viewer writes that before the premise of Star Trek Discovery was announced, they were hoping for a series based on the Enterprise C. I love Discovery, but that would have been interesting. Another viewer writes, "Are you making the Banana Splits movie too? Please tell us." I'd love to tell you, but surprisingly enough, if those discussions are happening, I'm not a part of them. I know. Shaka. Will the rest of Jake Sisko's story ever be told? We can always hope, but in the meantime, we can rest content that we have this perfect little gem of an episode. One where time travel sci-fi dramatizes not the power of romantic love, but the love between a father and son. We might be saying it a bit early, but happy Father's Day to one and all. Don't think that he doesn't want grandchildren.